Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm here with Jamie.
Nice to see you as well. So today we're talking about the UK once again. We're moving on to part 2. So today there's lots of stuff that we missed first time. First time we were just talking about history, really, weren't we? So, shall I unpack what we want to discuss today?
Definitely, go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to talk about immigration. And later we're going to talk about meritocracy, comparing the UK to America. Some people argue America has more meritocracy. We're going to talk about the British media, things like television and such. Also, British food, British music, and we will also be talking about politics throughout, a very popular topic of discussion.
Definitely. Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
So, talking about the politics and immigration, it's a very hot topic right now.
Yes.
How do you want to start it?
So, I identify as white British. I was born and raised in this country. I have some links to Wales. So that makes me English and Welsh, which is still British. And I have no issue with immigration. And I feel like not many people are addressing this at the moment. We have a bit of an attitude of keeping it quiet. People don't want to make assumptions about other people's cultures. They don't want to be called racist. So as a blanket statement, we just don't talk about race. And I think that's a very poor and silly decision because we're going to run into problems in the future that we need to address.
Okay. Oh, I like how you have started it.
Yeah.
Why do you think UK? So I have noticed UK people, people from UK, they are very polite, and UK is one of the most diverse country in the world.
Yeah.
And but I also saw this stat that said 14.8% of the UK population is made up of immigrants.
Right.
And so when you see that, and when you see the discourse, the political discourse not being talked in a way that it should be, so that it can attract young people as well.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
Well, so something this reminds me of, I saw a stat of London, and I believe London, it's 36% are white British, meaning most of London is immigrants, basically. But what you have to remember is that London was established by immigrants. They were established by the Romans under Londinium, and this country's had many foreign rulers, but what we've kept is the values of this culture. So as long as the values are kept, I see no issue with people of different cultures, of different, complexions, being part of London life and the UK life, really. I think it's our responsibility because my ancestors, and a lot of Brits' ancestors, basically, under new imperialism, and even before that, they were going around, I don't know if you know this, English people were going around and they were claiming every bit of land as their own land.
I'm very aware of that.
Consequently, that's come back to us right now. And I think it's great that we're more open to specifically India, who were a colony, and also the West Indies. We're also seeing a return of people from Canada and America and Australia integrating back into the UK culture. And I think all of that is good, and all of that should be respected equally. Unfortunately, it's not all respected equally. We had something called the Windrush Scandal about 5 years ago. I don't suppose I've talked about it before, or you've heard it.
No, I haven't heard
Basically, of it. Jamaica was a British colony before the 1960s. This meant that they were all British citizens. People during that period of time decided to move back to the homeland of the UK. They were accepted and they were given their passport and such, British passport. So they were born in Britain because they were born in Jamaica, Britain, and they moved back to their homeland. However, about 10 years ago, all of their documents went missing, and many of them were told they need to return to Jamaica.
How did the documents go missing?
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. It's basically they've been neglected, and this is why it's called a scandal. Windrush were the generation that came post-World War II. We had a deficit of workers, so a lot of Jamaican workers came to the UK because a lot of English people died at war in France. And basically the scandal is that they became non-citizens because their country, British Jamaica, no longer existed. So they were told go back to Jamaica, but they never were under Jamaican citizenship.
So they were not integrated into British citizenship?
They were integrated, all in like South London areas. But basically everything went missing, and consequently no one knew what to do. Yeah.
So what's their situation now? Are they being forced to go to Jamaica, or are they still in the
that
UK?
that was a real scandal. So there was a lot of backlash for that, and the government got a lot of crap for it. But it just goes to show that not everyone is treated equally, really.
Yeah, even if you're born in the same country.
Yeah.
That is a sad fact. But do you think this inequality exists at the top, or does it exist at the bottom as well? Like where normal people, the UK population is also worried about the immigration and all the. So basically, most of the time when they look at the news, they see the boats. And and it is portrayed like the boats are invading the country rather than some refugee from other countries coming after having a horrible of a journey, where many of them lose their lives.
Yeah.
So do you think UK people, the normal class people, do you think they also see it in the same way as the top ones do, which are basically saying, okay, no, you need to go back to your country because you don't belong here?
Well, I think there's an attitude that exists at all levels, which is very strong-minded and xenophobic. I think that's a natural part of human nature, is that we don't understand things that are different, so we decide to go on the defense about it. And I think it doesn't work in the long term, because the world's becoming more globalized. Like it or not, the world is not the same as it was 50 years ago. Labels like countries are no longer becoming that useful of words, especially with the rise of the internet. The young generation, they don't feel connected to countries. They feel connected to the ideas they share. Having said that, I think the current young generation are, I'd like to think, more accepting than their older generations. Probably because, well, for example, when my mum was at school, there were no foreigners in her classes. Everyone was born and raised English names, English parents, everyone. And that was only like the 1980s, really. When I was at school, there were a few kids who were Indian. A few of them became good mates of mine. One of them was, I think, Punjabi, and the other was from New Delhi. And I got on well with them. However, I'm now working as a teaching assistant at a school, and I've noticed from this school that there's lots more diversity than I experienced when I was at school. So it's really accelerated over the last 40 years. I think it's good because we're still teaching the values, and one of the 5 pillars of British values is tolerance, and I think it's great that we accept tolerance, and I would say that's something that the Americans are less so good at. Sorry to just suddenly throw out a jab at America right there, but I think we should be proud of this country, and I think there's no issue with being ethno-multi-nationalist in a sense. So not completely over your head with nationalism, but have this underpinning of community. And I think community is what keeps the country running. And I think that's sort of lacking in this country right now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But, so the one slogan, or whatever you'd like to call it, that I believe in is like Earth is one country and human beings its population.
Yeah.
So I believe that there should not be such things as borders and blocking people from traveling from one place to another place.
Yeah.
Because human beings are the only animals which are caged because of a border.
Yeah.
If you have the strongest passport in the world, you can go anywhere in the world. If you have the weakest, one of the weak passport in the world, it's very, very difficult for you to go around your country, even if you can afford it, basically.
Wow.
But saying that, UK people, they have many people, they travel abroad. They go for their holidays to many of the Commonwealth countries or to other nations, and they seem to understand the culture that comes from outside. Like one of the main dishes in this country is chicken tikka masala. It was invented in here in Birmingham,
I believe, by second generation Indian immigrants.
And every Indian person who goes to a takeaway is ordering chicken tikka masala, and so that shows how people are very accepting.
Well, it's delicious, isn't it?
In this country, it is amazing.
I love chicken tikka masala.
But then you also have people like Katie Hopkins, who basically called immigrants cockroaches and feral humans. Okay. So when you see that, when you see the two different dynamics, that in your day-to-day life, you have seen people from different culture, you work with them, you play with them, you are in friend groups with them, you go to pub with them, go to club with them. Yeah. But then you see people like Katie Hopkins who are basically completely opposing the idea of immigrants and like basically naming them in a way that is like calling cockroaches is not a good.
She said very bad. This particular individual, Katie Hopkins, she said incredibly horrible things in her life, and I'd like to say she is a nasty human being. She's not just said bad things about immigrants. She says bad things about anybody, and I don't think she has many friends, and she knows why. But when we talk about immigration, I'd like to say what she's trying to point out is this sense of community that's lacking, and a sense of connection that's lacking. Obviously, she's not intelligent enough to articulate that fact, but that's what she believes. And what I kind of think her as is like a canary in a coal mine, meaning she's like signalling, yelling out, saying, we've got a problem. However, that canary is a pigeon or a seagull that's shitting everywhere.
But I like the way you said that. So basically, when you look at... when we're talking about immigration, one of the top countries that come to my mind is Sweden and Canada, where their immigration policies were very relaxed for the refugees, and they had lots of refugees come to their country, but now they're struggling to integrate with them. What do you think is the main reason behind that?
Well, I know I think, what was it, Sweden you said?
Yeah.
I know that they're making lots of schools for immigrants who are coming from cultures that are very different from Western cultures. And there have been several cases in the Nordic countries of crimes being committed against the local people. Obviously, that's very tragic. I'm not really too sure why that's happening, actually. It's difficult, you know.
Yeah,
this has never happened in the whole world's history. Something like this has never happened.
But yes, definitely. And for us young people, talking about this topic seems rather difficult for us, because we don't whatever we hear in the news is not always the truth, and we know that fact. So because of that, we don't believe in everything that we see in the news. The things we see in our day-to-day life is somehow different from what we see in the news about the immigrants and how they are integrating in the community and everything. But then so basically, if we want to preserve our culture, if we want to preserve our community, a sense of community, I think we'll have to work within ourselves rather than go and blame someone for basically destroying your culture or your community.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's the mob mentality. This is what Germany had in the 1930s. So Germany, they had a huge rise in economic growth, and the people suddenly became motivated, and that's because they found a cause, and their cause was blame a specific group. So it is very powerful to blame people for problems in the world, but they catch on fire and they create problems of themselves. So, yeah.
Yes, we human beings are. It doesn't matter how good or bad we are. We are very good at dehumanizing someone and doing the horrible things that we can't even imagine of doing those.
Yeah.
So going back to politics a bit more, election is this year. There is election this year.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's going to happen?
So, I know that Labour's on the rise. The opinion polls recently put Keir Starmer at 43.7% popularity. Controversially, alternatively, Rishi Sunak is at 23.6% popularity, meaning Labour is increasing. They've stayed ahead of the opinion polls since the start of 2022. There's a good chance we're going to see a new Labour government. The last Labour government was considered one of the best Labour governments ever. So I think we've got high expectations, and it's either going to go really well or it's going to go really bad.
It seems like when I look at the British politics, it seems like for 10 years there is going to be this one party, and after 10 years there's going to be another one. They tend to switch between Labour and Tory like that.
It's good that it's flexible, and also something that my partner said, she's Japanese, is that she's surprised how people can have such strong opinions and they somewhat fight in a sense, but then everyone goes and does the same thing afterwards. Like, people have these strong opinions, but then they don't actually matter in the big picture, you know? So I think it's great. We've got like a healthy democracy, or at least we've got the basis of a healthy democracy, because people can change power and the government can change quite flexibly, really.
What's the name of that group who blocks the motorways and all that? Just Stop Oil? Yeah.
Yes.
So those. So because of them, do you think the Green Party are going to be on rise as well? Because many people are being aware of the environmental crisis that we might face in the near future.
Well,
and
I was going to say, I think we all know why the Green Party is not going to win, and it's because their party is centred around one issue, and that means all the other issues are going to be copies of different parties.
But most of the parties, they are focusing on one issues in particular, like
Right.
Tory, economics,
Yeah.
Labour. Well, they're going to say, we're going to fix the
Mm.
economics, not the Tory, and we will also fix the immigration.
Mm.
And then there are Lib Dems somewhere, I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
And I have talked with a few of my friends. I asked them, okay, are you going to vote, and what are you looking for voting? And they say, well, it doesn't really matter who we vote for. It's either Tory or Labour. So they don't even consider Lib Dems or Greens. And they think like even if they vote for them, they're not going to win. So their vote is not going to matter.
Mm.
But if that's the opinion of the majority, then yeah, of course, the votes will not matter.
Yeah.
But if everyone did believed in themselves and voted for the cause that they believe in, like the manifesto that they believe in or that they see is representing them, I think it would be a better option for them. But then young people are not that involved in politics, are they, in this country?
Probably not. What you were saying about the political parties is that we have a first past the post system, which means you need 50% of votes in order for your party to be the majority. And I suppose young people, they have the two options, the Tories or the Labour government. Statistically, the areas which are more educated, like Cambridge and Oxford, they vote more Labour. The Conservatives, they take a hold specifically around the south of England. So these are going to be a lot of middle class, older people, maybe about 50-ish, taking in most of the votes. And they do take most of the votes.
It does seem that many the metropolitics around the world, they vote for left-leaning parties and the rural areas vote for the right-leaning parties. But then Labour is not completely left-leaning party. It's a centre-left now. And Rishi Sunak's party is not completely a right-leaning party. It's a centre-right. So many of their ideologies, they clash with each other.
I agree.
And so it all sounds doom and gloom. Do you think there is anything positive?
Anything positive? Let me check my notes.
Yes, we need to get out of this.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. Politics is not my strong point.
Do you think what I think is young people should start investing more of their time learning about the politics and why politics is important for us.
Yeah.
As a human beings, we are political in nature.
Yeah.
We make many treaties with our family in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go out today and I'll do this instead of that. Those kind of things. We're always in basically a diplomatic conversation with our friends, with our family and all that. So I think we should focus on politics. But yeah, it is difficult because now if we want to start from one ideology, which ideology do you go with? Do you go with capitalism, communism? Do you go with socialism?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to even understand one side because like there is no good representation of one of them. There is no good representation of capitalism or communism or socialism. People might say China as a communism. I mean, China is not entirely communist, not run by communism ideology.
They've been communist for about 70 years, and they've been capitalist for 2000.
The whole economic boom, it came. There is a bit of meritocracy, autocracy, authoritarian government, and capitalism in there. Right. It's not a mix of one. And many people don't. I had one friend who did not even who believed that in the Western countries they don't run on capitalism anymore.
How could you? How did he back up that claim?
I did not had enough time to have that conversation with him. But there is one. I don't know if he's a philosopher or not. His name is Anis Varoufakis. He's from Greece.
Don't swear.
Sorry. That's his name. Sorry. And he says the capitalism is being killed or being destroyed by the new type of feudalism we have, and that is techno-feudalism.
Techno-feudalism?
Yes,
wow,
he used that word, and I absolutely loved it.
What an interesting statement.
So he basically said, there is one man controlling whatever you see online. Like if you go to Facebook, there is one man who controls the whole things you see online. What you can buy, what you can like, what you can watch. Same with Google, same with Amazon. There is one person, one algorithm dictating what you see, what you buy, what choices do you have.
Yeah.
And in feudalism, it's basically one person controlling the
Yeah.
options you have. So he
Yeah.
is saying, okay, it's a bit of techno feudalism,
Yeah.
and it's slowly taking over capitalism. And
Yeah.
there is a bit of truth in there.
Yeah, that reminds me of this claim I heard somewhere, which was that in the past we suffered with a lack of information, but in the present day we have an overload of information. So people give you too much information, and then there's one that stands out, and then you just remember that bit. Whereas in the past, people just didn't have access to it. Yeah.
Well, even though we have too much information, the amount of information people have is very less.
Right.
Well, like in India, there is this thing called a WhatsApp university. So basically, there is a large group of people who believe whatever they see in WhatsApp.
Wow.
So their opinion is shaped entirely by the WhatsApp chat groups, WhatsApp, links and everything that
Yeah.
they say. And they make claims that if you hear, even about Gandhi, they make such claims that if you hear, you will question yourself. You will
Yeah.
question, okay, how did that came to be?
Do you know what? This actually links nicely into one of the topics I wanted to discuss, which was the meritocracy in America. And like I said earlier in this podcast, we need a sense of community in this country. That community cannot be communism, in my opinion, because it shouldn't be such a strong ideology. Alternatively, I don't think it should be the American dream, because I think that's also an ideology of capitalism. So we need to establish our own sense of community, not just in this country, but globally, also in countries like your home country of Nepal. So we need this. We need to make our own systems independently. Really, let's not join this group of my gang or your gang. And America, they're seen as the big cheese, right? They're seen as the most successful people in the world, and I think especially in Western Europe, they're considered like the big brother in some sense. NATO pay for most of our costs. Controversially, Donald Trump said recently the countries that aren't paying for NATO should just, fend for themselves against Russia.
But that takes the whole point of
Yeah.
NATO out of it, isn't it? NATO is American establishment, and if they don't want to be in it,
Yeah.
then what's the point of having NATO?
Yeah, but they're basically saying we're not going to take after you if you're not paying your cut.
You mentioned the ideology of American dream, but
Yeah.
ideology of American dream is very individualistic ideology.
Yeah.
It's like you always want to be successful and better in
Yeah.
your life, and
Yeah.
that's the whole idea of American
Yeah,
dream.
but then America has such high levels of racism because people think, all right, my life doesn't affect yours, so I don't give a shit about your life,
so as long as nothing wrong is happening with me, I don't care about what is going on around the world.
Once there's a problem, this idea of individualism becomes a big issue because what it creates is a high level of intolerance. And I think countries like America and China, wherever they go in the world, if they see something they don't like, they're very intolerant. They don't think about what that country's situation is, and they just assert their viewpoints without consideration. Maybe that's just a byproduct of being a very big population, having a big economy. They think they can throw their weight around wherever they want. Maybe I'm a bit angry because of an experience I had yesterday. Basically, I was waiting at the train station because the train was late. It eventually got cancelled. It was in like a waiting room in the train station. Everyone was on their phone. I think all of them were English, I assume. There was an American couple, and they were like huffing and puffing. They were rolling their eyes. They were talking to the other people who were busy on the newspaper or reading, and they were going like, "This is unbelievable," and stuff like that. And then when the announcer went over saying the train is delayed, they were like, "Well, why can't they tell us why?" And it's like, come on, everyone else is doing their best in this situation. And you think because you're an outsider and you don't quite understand it, you can just shout your opinions as you want. So I think that specific example was an aspect of what annoys me about American culture.
Yep.
Yeah.
That reminds me of one of our friend in a classroom in the other day. He said, there was American, Americans come to Britain and they complain about the train. And I said, oh, you don't even have train in your country. So what are you complaining about? But then can they not have opinion though? It's like we always want good, isn't it? Like we always want better of things that we already have.
Yeah.
If there is no transportation, we want transportation, basic transportation. Yeah. If there is basic transportation, we want even more better transportation.
Yeah.
We always want more and more and more, better and better and better. So if people who come from outside basically and or some other countries where they don't have the infrastructure or everything that they have here and they're complaining about it, is it, do you see it as not a valid complaint that they should be able to make? Is it like only British people allowed to make that?
I think that is an aspect of the pride, is that like I think it was a comedian who said this, is like British people will go, oh, it's awful here, the weather's awful, the food's awful, and then like somebody from a different country will go, yeah, I agree, it's ridiculous, and they'll be like, shut up. It's like I think the problem is the English people put too much burden on themselves. They forget that while they're being tolerant, they're not actually including everyone in the problems, and other people might have solutions too. I think maybe it just really rubbed me the wrong way when the Americans were saying it, because Americans are known for having a loud voice wherever they go, and I think that's what irritated me specifically in that circumstance.
But they're not the good chanters when they have to do shout in the sports stadium, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like the American soccer, football. They have such polite chants. They're like, we're gonna win, we're gonna win, we're gonna win. And then the Brits, they just say the most absurd shit you've ever heard. One of them was like an inflatable penis was loose in the crowd.
Oh yeah,
and the security took it away, and suddenly there's like 10,000 fans going, "We want our dick back." or sometimes they're just shouting, "We're gonna go home," and they're just shouting it at the players, and the players are thinking, all our fans are going to go home.
Is it the opportunity for British people to do a bit of banter, because they have been so polite outside of a stadium? Right. When they come into a stadium, they're like, oh yeah, now we're going to show them.
Yeah, they get too excited, I think. They don't... I think that's the British problem, is they get overexcited.
But they're also pessimist.
Okay, I think they're cautious optimists. They will keep working. They will go ahead. They will do stuff. I mean, it's not like countries where the suicide rate is really high. I think there's something driving this country, but sometimes they will lash out, and that's why we have maybe high stabbings and things like crime. I think it's also part of our persona that we're pessimistic, you know.
Well, isn't saying cautious optimist same as like, you know, the word, it used to be cell-shock before, and now it's PTSD, post-traumatic disorder, because it doesn't sound as as bad as it was before. Everything
PTSD is
making
more
safe.
clinical, I think.
Yeah, but saying pessimist is a bit harsh, so we say what was the word? Cautious optimism.
No, so because they keep calm and carry on sentiment, I think. I think it's people will work every day and they will have some joy in their life, but they don't expect that joy to stay for long. Like if they're having a good day, they'll go, not too bad. You know, it could be worse. Like they're counting their days. They're basically like, it's good today, but tomorrow it could be shit.
So basically, for someone like me who came from like the other, like, you know, people like to call third world countries. Mm-hmm. For us, any European countries, like the majority the Western European countries, and UK, Northern Americas, the Australias, the South Korea and Japan. For us, all those countries seem to be land of opportunity for us. It's like we see there as, in those places there is much higher chances of me going up the economic ladder than I would be able to do in any other countries or in my own country. Yeah. But when we come here, America is considered as the land of opportunity and the place where you can go higher up in the economic ladder. But I saw this study. We said basically America has one of the lowest economic mobility among the industrialized country in the world. Wow. But we still have that perception that in America the ladder can be climbed. Is it because there you tend to see the American heroes are those who had nothing and they made something out of it? Like a Dropout made one of the largest social networking website or platform in the world. Like a Dropout made one of the largest operating system Windows in the world. They always tend to be Dropout. I don't know why. And
that's interesting.
And it seems to be like people at the lower level can climb up the ladder. But do you think it's true? Do you think it doesn't exist in the UK, or do you think it exists at higher quantity in America than in UK?
Well, I think the obvious reason is class, right? We talked about this in the first interview. It's Brits, they don't consider themselves centre of attention, and they are very self-aware of what sort of position they're at. Whereas I think Americans, they are told from a young age that they can be anyone. It doesn't matter where they come from. They can do whatever they want in their life, make something. I think that is an example of pessimism, is that Brits think that, some Brits think that they're stuck in a certain class category.
So even if you are high in terms of merits,
Yeah.
you're not going to climb the ladder.
Um,
Maybe the economic ladder, but not the class ladder.
maybe.
Wow.
But then again, how do we measure class ladder? You know,
Yeah,
It's
like
so
what defines the
weird, yeah.
lower class and upper class?
it's so
Yeah,
weird.
it's very ambiguous.
I wrote this down as a note on the train. I don't know why, but I seem to have thought it was quite significant for this topic of meritocracy. It probably come back to me, but basically, I've written down that English people are devoted to the abstract and scientific method. This means that they focus on the reasons. They try to be a bit logical, whereas Americans, they might try to put their faith in something, put their Christianity in something, or put their belief in the government in something. Whereas I think British people are very sceptical, and they don't trust easily. And I think this flares out into people taking pseudo-moral stances, also nihilism. These teenagers who don't know where they're going to go in their life, they're just doing what they please. You know, they're wearing balaclavas and carrying knives and stuff. I think they're just doing what they please because they think that's how the world works. I don't agree with that. But I think for the majority of Brits, this serves us well because we know that we're not the centre of attention. We know that there's no ideology that holds us all together, that everyone is very independent. And yeah, I think that's why our meritocracy can work, is because we recognise that everyone has their own story and that everyone's experienced different things in their life. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, talking about meritocracy, I think the best example of that would be China, where basically, well, from what I've heard, it's like mayor from this city is the mayor from this city is, if he's not, or he or she is not doing as much good work as the mayor of another city, then that mayor city will not, that mayor of that city will not be mayor in the next term. It will be someone, because they always judge who can do the
thing is,
highest production
tribalism,
and all that.
I don't want to use this word, but I am. But that is a form of tribalism, because you're basically creating enemies among the local community. And I think this has happened throughout all of Chinese history, where they've had warring states. They've divided themselves up into different countries, and they think that they're competing, but they forget that the bigger picture, you know. But I'm not worried about China. I think China's going to do very, very well in the future.
I believe the same as well. I mean, yeah, there should be cautious measures that should be taken in, like every country should take cautious measures from another country, because from what we have seen in history, we have been in war with almost virtually every country has been in war with virtually every other country. I know there are exceptions, I know that, but it is in the grand picture, that is what we see. And recently, there was some cyber attacks done on government, like people related to the government position or the government agencies from China to UK, and that has also deteriorated the relationship between UK and China.
Definitely.
And those kind of things happen again and again. And for normal young people who are just trying to get their life by, it's so much stress to take on. Like when we call it as a stress, people who are older than us might say, "Oh no, that's not even a stress. We're in a war." And I'm like, we are in war as well, and we are uncertain of our future. Like we don't know when the war is going to begin.
I saw a documentary saying it's a war of ideas that's going on right now.
And there might be literal war at some point. We don't know. Like, look at Ukraine. Look at Israel, what's going on. Look at Sudan. Look at Yemen, what's going on. People are dying there day and day. And, like, when we are not... like, our center of attention seems to be one war. And, like, then comes a chief of army who says, oh, we don't have enough people if we were to go to fight with Russia. And I'm like, why are we talking about that again? Where the whole idea of going into war came about. And... If there is a regime like Nazi Germany, then okay, let's stand up and fight against that. But we don't have that kind of regime right now.
I get what you're saying. They're too ambiguous. It's like, while you can criticize the Russian government and criticize the Chinese government, they've created a lot of jobs around the world, and they've helped their own people, which we can say is good. And
they don't really, like, you know, no one really appreciates how dependent they are, like how much European countries were dependent on Russia for energy and for economic, like, for every European country, one of their largest trading partner is China. And and they are there was this Utopia. There is a series called Utopia in Australia, and they have this one episode where basically they are talking about saving the trade routes, and they say, oh yeah, we need to save our trade routes, and so they're like, okay, from whom? From China. But isn't China our largest trading partner?
That's why we're lucky in a sense, because China's still very useful to America and vice versa. So we're lucky because even though they've got this whole military not conflict, but just like assertion in the South China Sea, they aren't at war because they depend on each other's economies. Yeah.
Well, I think we reached to a point where we should get out of this topic and talk about something, or unless you want to add something.
Well, I wanted to say, if we're going to talk about Britain, we've got a few choices. We're going to talk about either media, like television, food, or music. Which one do you want to start on?
I want to start on food.
You want to start on food? I'm
Because
happy you said that, because I'm feeling hungry and I haven't eaten all day, so it's given me a good reason to eat when I finish this.
the reason being,
yeah,
I'm sorry to say this, I have not tasted lots of English food because it looks a bit different than what I'm used to.
Or do you want to do that later? Yeah?
Or do you want to talk about it later?
Well, I'm saying we could eat some British food.
Yes, I think we should.
All right.
Well, I'll try my best.
Okay.
But English breakfast is the best breakfast food in the world.
You heard it here.
You can't convince me otherwise.
You heard it here. International
No pancakes with maple syrup.
Yeah.
No chai with a biscuit like we do in Nepal and India.
That sounds good.
Not that. But bacon, fried eggs, baked beans, and hash browns. You cannot top that.
The thing is, your mind loves it, but your heart hates it.
Oh, no. I love that.
No,
food.
your heart hates it because this is why people are getting heart disease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying your heart hates it. I mean, you might love it, but, it's somewhat junk food.
But then I see something like pies, and I don't really understand. It's a potato and minced meat with some vegetables cooked together.
Do you want to hear the story of Cornish pasty?
Okay.
Basically, a Cornish pasty is a pie that inside it's got beef stew, and the reason it was made was for the miners. So the miners, they couldn't wash their hands all the time coming out of the cave, so they had this pasty, which meant that they didn't get the food inside dirty. Also, they didn't need a knife and fork. They could just hold on to the pastry and eat it.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So that's why many food is you can pick it up with your hand.
I think it might be because of the working culture, Victorian working culture, yeah.
What's the national British food, apart from chicken tikka masala?
Right, well, I saw your notes earlier, and I know you're going to say fish and chips. I'm going to ask our editor, do you like fish and chips? I love fish and chips. Well, that's great. He loves fish and chips too.
I love fish and chips as well.
I don't like fish and chips.
But it's too dry. I agree with you.
I don't. It's too oily sometimes. I'm outspoken because a lot of my friends and families are going to say they love it. I don't like it, okay?
Why?
I'm not, all right, I'm not here to have a rant about why I don't like fish and chips. That's my preference, right? That's my preference, okay? But what I wanted to say is that you might ask me, why do you love fish and chips? And I think I've got an explanation.
Well, 22% of Brits, they go to fish and chips shop every week and buy. So many people like fish and chips.
Yeah,
so why don't you like it?
Right round the corner, and when they went out of business the next week, a different company were selling fish and chips there. So basically, I think our love for fish and chips it's got a few reasons. One of the reasons is that we're an island nation. Fish is easily accessible everywhere. And this is particularly prevalent in the seaside towns. And I think fish and chips has become a big seaside tradition in the UK. Have you visited any seaside towns?
I've been to Blackpool.
Okay, that's a good example.
And I have had fish and chips there. I hated it.
Okay,
sorry. Fine. I mean, it came with a gravy.
Yeah.
And I did not understand what the gravy was.
Oh,
I couldn't understand the food itself.
That's a northern thing. So in the north, they have it with gravy. I'm not really too sure why. Also, in the south, I think you're more likely to have chips with curry sauce. Yeah.
What is curry sauce?
Curry sauce is a bit like, have you ever had katsu chicken?
Yes.
Yeah, so that particular curry paste, I think it's a British curry paste. Actually, the reason they have, this is an interesting fact, the reason they have katsu curry in Japan is because the curry powder was brought by the British.
In Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why katsu is a thing in Japan.
Yeah, so that curry taste was from India, but it's like British version, basically. But with fish and chips, it's a very big seaside tradition. Any seaside town you go to, you'll see fish and chips.
But the fish are not fresh, and it doesn't make sense. If you're just next to the sea, why don't you
Well,
buy from local fishermen?
actually, what's happened recently, because of a breakdown in Russian-British relationship, since 1957, Britain have been able to fish in Russian waters, but as of, I think, last year, we're not allowed to anymore.
Oh, wow.
You know? So that's a real breakdown. They're hitting us in the fish and chips, Russia. But what I wanted to say is that this whole fish and chips comes with a bunch of imagery related around seaside traditions. And this really emerged during New Imperialism. So a lot of seaside towns will have remnants of like Queen Victoria statues and stuff. And that's because the ports were easy access to opportunity, because there were lots of people who thought, right, the sea is where I'm going to make money. I'm going to come back to my hometown and I'm going to make it lovely. So this includes seaside traditions like Ferris wheels, traditional Victorian arcades, as well as fish and chips. Also, we have things like sand castles, you know.
Yes.
And there's the Punch and Judy shows. I don't suppose you've heard of Punch and Judy.
No.
Basically, if you go to somewhere like Weymouth or even maybe Brighton, you'll see these shows where they have like a big, like a tall tent, and inside the tent there's a man, and the whole time he's just got his arms in the air because he's got puppets on the end of his hand.
Okay.
And they basically tell stories like that.
Ah,
And then
yes.
it's actually a very bad story, because the Victorians weren't very politically correct, let's say. In the story, I think Punch is the main character.
I thought it was literally punching. But
Well,
yeah,
actually, what he does in the story is he beats up his wife.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
in Punch and Judy, that's what he does. He has a
Oh,
bat.
so it's literally.
He has a bat, and Judy says something stupid, and then Punch goes like that, and he beats her down like that.
See,
yeah.
not everything about Western countries is good, my guys.
I know
Not
that.
everything about
And
Western countries
actually,
is good.
Punch itself, the word Punch, that character is possibly the most racist cartoon that ever existed in this country.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Horrid.
But
Horrid.
that was part of the seaside tradition. So fish and chips became part of our identity because they were part of those towns.
But I heard fish and chips is Belgian food, isn't it?
Maybe the potatoes.
Chips.
I don't know about the deep fried stuff. I know that Scotland has lots of deep fried stuff.
Oh yeah, the Mars bar. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to try it when we're going to
We're
Scotland
going to
next
Scotland next week. We're going to Scotland.
week, and we're going to try fried Mars bar.
I love you,
So-
Scotland.
If not chicken tikka masala, if not fish and chips, what is the British national food?
Well, okay.
This question has been bugging me for a long
Okay.
time. I would like to say baked beans.
Well, first of all, can we just put this on the table that chicken tikka masala is recognised as the UK's national dish?
It
That's
does
the
shows
fact.
how accepting and how diverse the country is.
That's the fact. However, our world-class chefs, people like Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver, do you know what they make?
What do they make?
They make French food.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
There was this video. It said, "Oh, do you know where the world's top 10 restaurants are?" And they
Mm.
said London, and the other guy asked, "But do you know what kind of cuisine they
Yeah.
cook? French."
Yeah, it's all French food. However, I'd like to also say that our most famous takeaway shops in this country are majoritively Indian takeaway and Chinese takeaway, and they are the largest populations in the earth on Earth. So that really reflects our global stance. The fact that the most popular food you can deliver comes from the most populated places on Earth. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
I like how incorporating of every culture you are.
Thank you.
It's very nicely put forward in
Thank
there. And yes, so British food. So you know those stargazing pie.
Yeah,
Like,
I've never
when-
tried one.
When people call, like, you know, there are very different cultures which use each and every part of an animal as a food. Basically the intestine, the screen and everything. And they think that is horrible. But they don't think making a pie, making a thing out of a pig's blood and eating that is not horrible, apparently. And stargazing pie, which looks like
Bunch of-
something out of horror.
It's a bunch of fish heads in fish pie.
Yeah, looking like it's literally stargazing.
I don't know why the
And-
fish heads, but I would like to say maybe we should try fish pie later. I think you'll like fish pie.
I would not want to spend a bit of money and still be hungry at the end of the day.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry.
Okay,
No,
you don't have to have the
sorry.
heads in it.
So the thing is, with me particularly, I don't know. Maybe it's because like I grew up eating same kind of food every day. The kind of food I like is very specific. I like Nepalese food
Yeah.
primarily.
Why?
And-
No, I'm joking.
Because I'm from Nepal.
Yeah.
And I like Nepalese food. I don't like each and every dishes that is cooked in Nepal. I like most of them. And I like kind of Nepalese Indian food. Like, not a lot of spices, the variety of spices, but some spices.
Okay.
And so but I agree when people from Britain go to other countries and then they can't eat the food because it's so alien to them, and I'm like, of course. I mean, it's like our our food palate or tongue palate is not same. So it is understandable.
It's a very neutral palate we have.
But the palate that we have, that we seem to share a lot, is music.
Oh,
lots of people like British
this man
music.
is so poetic. If you ever noticed it, he's got beautiful transitions. You hear that? They transition palette into music. Food to music. What a creative guy. I appreciate that about you.
Who is your? Okay, I'm gonna ask you this. I'm not gonna say British singer or British musician.
Yeah.
Who is your all-time favorite musician?
All-time favorite musician.
Please, let's not go back to Beethoven.
I'll tell you who it might be. Mick Jagger.
I haven't heard of him.
Mick Jagger, he's the lead vocalist of the Rolling Stones.
Ah, okay.
Their last song came out last year called Angry. It's quite a fun tune. It's very sort of, the music video is quite American, really. But the Rolling Stones have been a band for about...
You hate anything America, don't you?
No, I don't actually. But the Rolling Stones have been a band for 60 years.
Oh, wow.
And I think the reason why English musicians are so successful in America is because they can understand America in a way that they don't understand themselves.
What do you mean?
Okay.
So
I've put
they
myself
understand
in a bit
American more than American themselves.
Okay, I've put myself in a bit of a difficult predicament now.
It's all right, you're British.
I have to explain myself, right? What I want to say is that, starting off with the Beatles, they capitalised on many black and southern musicians, like Chuck Berry. Other Southerners, I can't really remember all the Southerners, but they capitalised on their ideas in a way that was more appealing to the majoritively white audience at the time. And I think Britain have done that very successfully many times. I think it's because I like a love of imitation, so we want to imitate their culture in a way. Also, maybe it's part of the rebellious spirit, is that they don't want to conform to American norms. They want to sort of push the American boundaries as well as their own country's boundaries.
But apart from the music videos, I don't see much differences in British music or American music.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think that reflects why America and Britain have always been so connected. And I think if you look at people right now, like Harry Styles, I mean, he reflects this timeless American interest in white male singers, especially Anglo-American singers, the ones that have the English surnames.
Well, like Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, all of those people. And they've all made it successful in America. And I think that's probably a reflection of American culture, really.
Ed Sheeran is my favorite singer.
I do like
Ed Sheeran. I like Ed Sheeran. But then I also like listening to, what's his name? James Arthur. There used to be a song which was about love, like having a very nice life with your future wife. I used to listen to that, and my mom was like, "Why are you listening to a song like that?" It's like the song says, "Oh, in the morning I'll come and make a cup of coffee for you in the bed," and all that. Like it's all like
very cute.
Yeah, it's very cute and all that. But British Beatles. Yeah, they are famous all over the world. Queens. Yeah. They are famous all over the world. Like. Yeah. I know so many of my friends in Nepal who are massive fan of Beatles and Queens.
Wow.
And they absolutely love listening to all of the songs. Yeah. For me, Beatles, Hey Jude and Yesterday, they are like my all-time favorite song. I like the Queens because their song is so rebel.
Queen's very popular in the UK. I've been told by international students that they were surprised at how popular Queen was in the UK. Yeah.
Well, Queen's like Bohemian Rhapsody. That song. My goodness, what is that song?
Yeah.
It is amazing. But you can find similarities in American music if you listen to Hotel California or you see Red Hot Chili Peppers and all that, and AC/DC, Led Zeppelin.
AC/DC are Australian, but it's the same sort of dynamic.
See, I couldn't tell the difference.
Exactly.
For me, they sound American.
How racist of you.
I'm very sorry for that. But the difference, like completely, I would say 99.9% differences you can see is in UK and American rap, UK drill. Before coming to UK, I did not know there was such thing as UK drill.
Okay.
But when I came here, I listened to it. you can't understand UK drill with low IQ. You need to have a higher understanding of British culture.
It's the same in Canada. Canada have similar thing going on. Yeah.
Do they have
Yeah,
Canadian drill as well?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's basically the same as British drill, really.
Is Drake part of Canadian drill? I wouldn't say so.
Drake's actually done a few songs with British
yes, he
rappers.
has.
Yeah.
So what do you think of it? Like, what makes such the rap so different in America and in Britain? It comes from similar culture. I'm sorry to say
well,
that.
The thing is, African Americans have their own identity. I mean, if we're talking about rap specifically, they make up the biggest demographics of rappers. Their identity is a culture in itself, and their words have existed since the creation of America. However, in Britain and Canada, the people who are making this drill music, they are typically African descent, but they're not historically part of that culture. You know, they're bringing some like West Indies aspects or like Gold Coast, West Africa aspects. They're bringing some of their own language as well, especially Jamaican. There's a lot of Jamaican slang going around in the UK from rap, really.
Yes, like bombaklat or something. I don't know what that word means.
The thing is, for a long time, Jamaica was considered British in a sense, and they had something even called the Jamaican gentleman. So they would have this gentleman culture where they would have the dandies, you know, the guys wearing the suits and the hats. They had that in Jamaica. It was very similar. It's kind of gone in a bit of a crap state since the end of the empire, which is a bit of a touchy subject. Like, why have they gone that way, you know? But
everything leads back to empire, doesn't it?
I love the Jamaican part of this country's culture.
I want to try Jamaican food. See, Rastafari.
Oh, I've had some good chicken, actually.
Yes.
Down Allington Lane in like near Southampton area. They got this jerk chicken stall.
Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I have been wanting to try that for such a long time. I'm gonna go there next time.
Yeah, it's great.
When I have enough money, that is.
Great. Yeah.
Talking about like you know, the Rastafari music, like Bob Marley and all that.
Yeah.
It's so poetic and it's so adventurous. Like not adventurous. It's what's the word? It makes you think about the things in life that are very important to you, like things going around you, the politics, the environment, the society, and all that. Like, you know, we had a teacher, our principal. So basically, principal of this school, he was like kind of like this man who we idolize, basically, like a very learned person and very talented, but a bit goofy as well. Like we would not think of him as listening to like the music that we listen to or something like that. Yeah. And we have this singer in Nepal called Narayan Gopal, and he has very sentimental songs, and like they touch your heart and all that kind of thing. And like they make you, even if you don't have a girlfriend, they will that song will make you miss your girlfriend, basically.
Music connects the whole world, doesn't it?
And so we're listening to them one day. He came to the class and he said, you know, you guys should stop listening to him and you should start listening to Bob Marley. Narayan Gopal's song, they make you cry. They make you, the song touches you emotionally. But if you listen to Bob Marley's song, it will open your eyes to see the world around you. It will make you a bit kind of revolutionary,
Have you heard
bit of rebellious.
Is This Love? Bob Marley.
I have heard that.
I love that one.
My favorite song is No Woman No Cry.
Oh, that is a great one. Yeah.
Well, no hate against any women's. I love women's. All right. So British music. Who do you think is the top right now at this point? Is it Adele? How do you say Adele? Adele.
Well,
Sorry.
I'll tell you what. Arctic Monkeys are making quite a big rise in America. Also, the Americans are really paying attention to like our music culture. The fact that Arctic Monkeys can play a song and like 30,000 people start singing the same lyric at the same time, they're like, wow, that's unbelievable. Because America, I guess they don't have that like backing for some of their bands. And
also Central C might have made UK drill quite a bit famous with the help of TikTok and Instagram Reels in America as well. Like my friends, when I went to Nepal back in last January, so basically I was listening to UK drill and my friends came to and they were like, oh, what are you listening to? And then immediately Central C songs play. So I know that one. I was like, okay, that's your start.
Wow, that's great.
So they know Central C's, you know that song, the viral one, but they didn't know other things.
Well,
all right.
Our culture is being explored more in the world.
Yeah, the music is nice.
Yeah.
But then we have BBC, we have media, we have Top Gear. Top Gear is so famous around the world. Everyone who has watched any British BBC television show, they will know Top Gear. And do you know what another person, like personality, they will know the most?
Jeremy Clarkson?
No. It's Sir David Attenborough. How do you
he used to be the what's it called?
the
The director of this Winchester University.
Really?
Yeah, he was. David Attenborough was.
Oh, I wish he was still now.
Yeah, I
But,
don't know who it is anymore.
So the chancellor is Hugh something. Apparently he's like a comedian or something. Sorry, I don't know his name.
I think I know who you mean. It's
Hugh Dennis. No.
Hugh Dennis. He's the guy
Yes.
that was part of this TV show called Outnumbered.
Okay.
This TV show really reflects English culture. Everyone in the UK, I think they really like the TV show Outnumbered. They also really like the TV show In-Betweeners.
Yeah, what is In-Betweeners about?
Oh,
Sorry.
In-Betweeners just follows a bunch of school children, basically, going to a state school. You know?
Okay.
And state school is not something that's internationally seen, I think, about the UK. People have this perception that everyone in the UK goes to private school, which is ridiculous.
Well, I
So
mean,
it's good that that becomes a prevalent part of media, that, you know, normal people go to state school, you know, and it's good that that gets explored. And they're just teenagers, so they're just having a laugh. They're making a few like English sort of jokes, you know, banter. That's what they're doing. They're going on school trips and stuff. Also, Outnumbered is a similar case. They're like having a bit of a laugh, you know, about work-life culture, really. Yeah.
well, but it seems to me like you know, when I see from outside, like when I'm not really aware of British culture and everything, like everyone should be going to school like Hogwarts, isn't it? Like
yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, that movie does reflect UK education. I think this is an offset from Victorian culture. So Victorian culture, basically, they introduced something called the Education Act in 1870. Something that's interesting is the guy I work with at this current school, his ancestor actually created that act, which is quite crazy. But basically, in the Victorian period, everyone had to learn to read and write, also to speak properly, you know. And that's really reflected our teaching attitude, I think, for a long time. And that's still prevalent.
But I think we should all agree on one fact, that British people's, their vocabulary, oh my goodness, and the way you guys can articulate words and the sentences.
Wow.
No wonder like one of the best poets and one of the best writers in the world come from Britain. No wonder on that one.
Wow.
And
what's interesting to hear it from your side.
Why?
Well, because it's a different perspective.
Yes.
You know, I can't see these specific things.
Yes. So it's like, you know, when you appreciated our national anthem. I never thought Nepalese national anthem was that, you know, it like I knew the meaning, but even after knowing the meaning, I mean, I did not know how it would impact you in a way. Like you said, okay, it's such a, you know, uniting song. And I was like, once after you said that, and I went back and like read the lyrics while singing it, and I was like, yes, I can see that. Yeah. Now. And I think the outside
things you don't see. You know, this is why it's great to speak to different people. Really.
Yes, the conversation between the cultures.
Well, not just cultures. It's good to speak to people that are different from yourself. Yes. Full stop. If you're just talking to the same people every day, you're just going to turn into them. Yeah. And then I think this is a bit off topic, but like that happens at school. And then people think that they have to stay inside that same group for the rest of their life. Yes. And then they never make any risks in their life because they want to appeal to their friends, you know. Yeah. Like being unique is like a if you are unique in some way, like there is a high chance you will be basically, you know, bullied in a school or something like that. Like it's not like if you want to be different than other people, it's not appreciated. Like maybe you can be different in other sense, but if you want to be different in individual way, like what your talents are, what kind of things you want to do, like not everybody in your school might be into poems, but you like writing poems and reading them and listening to them, and that's very beautiful. You know. But then if you're doing that, then someone who doesn't like poems or who sees poem as like a soft thing that a weak man or woman would do, then I mean there is no way you can justify the strength behind a poem. Like for me, I find poems very, very uplifting. Like if I have any doubt in me or if I have anything going in me and I listen to a poem or I try to write some, like I'm a horrible writer in terms of poem. I can't write poems, but when I listen to them and when I try to imagine me being in the poems, I feel absolutely amazing. I wrote my first poem this week. It's probably from your influence. I don't know if I'll read it now, but I need to get feedback on it first, I think. But,
I will. We will read it in the 0 Hour Thoughts segment. Or do you want to go?
I'm a bit nervous. I'll read it to you off camera, and then we can decide next time.
All right. Okay. No, see, I mean, you have very nice vocabulary, and the way you write is very, very nice. So I believe it will be very nice.
Thank you.
So the one thing that I want to ask about the British media,
Yeah.
basically, what do you think about Piers Morgan? GB News.
All right, let me recollect what I remember from Piers Morgan. He's done a few interviews. I
Yeah.
know he did an interview with Andrew Tate. I found that very interesting.
Is he British, Piers Morgan? No.
Yeah,
Is he?
he's as English as you get. Yeah.
Really? I
He's-
thought he was American.
Oh, he's lived in America. He had an American TV show, but yeah,
Ah,
he's
okay.
he's about as English as Wensleydale cheese. He's very English.
Okay. Interesting. Like, he is trying very hard to have all sides of the story in his show, which I kind of appreciate,
Yeah,
basically. But then,
he's a bit of a bitch.
why would you say that?
He stormed off the TV show Good Morning Britain because someone confronted him about something that didn't make any sense. He didn't know how to articulate his argument, so he just got angry and he just stormed off the set.
Well,
So,
okay.
He's supposed to be a professional presenter. The people he works with, they're very calm and level-headed. He always, like, if there's a guest on the show, he just ruins the dynamic. Like, it's obvious to see why he has his own programs, because he can't work in a group environment. He just can't. I mean,
there was this video that I watched. There's this guy called Alex O'Connor. He makes
Yeah.
lots of videos about the royals or the like, the atheism and the religion and all that. And so basically, he had this video of saying, okay, trying to finish a sentence in Piers Morgan. So and he tries, he can't. He was unable to complete a sentence in
Wow.
Piers Morgan. So but. I mean, lots of controversies and lots of, like, Piers Morgan likes to tap into controversial topic. And
Yeah.
I don't blame him, because people do click on controversial topics. Like,
Yeah.
anything to do with controversy, they will click on it.
yeah.
And I don't really entirely blame him for that. But
Mm.
he likes to tap on it and then go on a discourse. Like,
Yeah.
have a person from Justice Stop Oil, or have a person from
Yeah.
LGBTQ community, and have a
Yeah.
person from any of these, any of this group of people who
Yeah.
have very strong opinions on
Yeah.
different things, and then come and try to make them make sense, and they can't make sense
Well,
in most of the
yeah.
cases, because he interrupts them most of the time.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the guests who come to his show, they are not of the highest. I'm sorry, but they are not of the highest caliber
Yeah.
that they could be.
Yeah.
And that basically represents that whole group as like a group of people who don't understand
Mm.
or who can't see how bad they are. Like, Just Stop Oil.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody in that group
Yeah.
is a blind follower
Yeah.
of whatever they are
That's
preaching
quite
about.
true. Yeah,
So-
that's quite true.
It represents them in a bad way. But then we have BBC. So they try to be very neutral on everything.
They also tried to be, I think, a bit of an authority, which is why they've been called Prejudice by lots of, like, political commentators. Yeah. But what I want to say, going back to Piers Morgan just for a moment, is he's like that uncle that says something you shouldn't say. And in a sense, he's lovable for it, but at the same time, you know that he's missing a bit of the knowledge. But we forgive him because he's funny and he's mostly a kind person,
Yeah. Well, Piers
Yeah.
Morgan is funny.
Yeah.
I would give him that. But shows like Top Gear, what do you think of it?
Top Gear.
It's very sad that Top Gear and the Grand Tour has ended, which is very, very sad.
Yeah.
I would
They're getting a bit
enjoyed
old
it
for
a
it,
lot.
really.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we need to give those guys some break. I
Those
mean, they
three.
deserve it.
Those three.
Yes, they have worked for a very, very long time. They
Yeah.
have made in growing up and learning about British culture such a fun thing. Well, maybe it's not the best representation of British culture, but I absolutely love those
So
shows.
have you watched a lot of Top Gear?
I have watched almost all of the episodes.
Have you seen when
of
they
it.
go to Africa?
Yes, I
Have
do.
you seen when they go to the southern states in America?
Oh yeah. So
That's crazy,
yes,
right?
and the time when they were to Argentina. So Top Gear,
Yes.
they have been to like Syria during the time of war,
Yeah.
or they have been to all the countries around the world where you can imagine of horrors and all those things, wars and everything going on.
Yeah.
But the closest they come to being killed was in Alabama and in Argentina.
Yeah, and it's because they're being prats, basically. The first one, the America one, they basically, for anyone who hasn't seen Top Gear, I'd recommend it. But in the America episode, there's three of them always, and they have to decorate each other's car. And basically, they want to be the first one to reach a certain location. So what they do is they decide to write the most profound things on the other guy's cars in hoping they'll get stopped by the police or they'll get like checked at a gas station or something. One of them writes Clinton for president. That's Democrat Hillary Clinton in the Southern Republican Alabama. That's a bad mistake. Somebody else, I think maybe Clarkson, writes on Hammond's car, NASCAR sucks.
Yes, in
And
pink.
NASCAR is like, they idolize NASCAR in the southern states. Basically, they end up getting a band of like just rough guys, young youth, chasing them out of this gas station. Stupid.
But what do you think when people see that and see Peaky Blinders, which is another great show from Britain,
Yeah.
and when they see that, and when they see like MI6 guy, James Bond,
Yeah.
basically name James Bond, like that, James
Yeah.
Bond. Sorry, I couldn't do the best impression.
James Bond.
Look at you. So when you see that kind of, what do you think? How people perceive Britain when they see that kind of content, that kind of media?
I think we're not surprised because obviously, if your country's making a media about itself, I think most people, they know what the truth is.
But what about the people from other countries who watch it?
I guess you don't really always consider them. I mean, it's nice if they do watch it, but if it's intended for a British audience, it's probably going to be quite obvious, I think.
What I mean is, like, when someone from Nepal or someone from India watches it, what
Yeah.
do you think they think of Britain itself?
Well, I'll tell you what, actually, what I'd recommend you watch is something like Kingsman. Because have you seen Kingsman?
Oh, yes.
Kingsman,
I absolutely love
Kingsman
that
is much
movie as
more
well.
realistic, I think, than something like James Bond or Peaky Blinders, because James Bond is extremely high class and Peaky Blinders is extremely gang based, and I think Kingsman is something a bit more closer to
Yes.
reality, which is, I don't know, it's normal people, and they get opportunities in life, and there's obviously this big class structure thing going on, but I think Kingsman's quite a good representation of this country.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Well, Kingsman is religiously
Yeah.
into the technology, saving the world, and then having this gentleman type, which is basically, if I were to imagine a British guy, is how I would imagine that guy, like a
Right.
very gentleman wearing a suit. And
Oh,
a
you mean
shirt
like
and
Hugh Grant?
yeah, like
Is it? Have I got the right one? I normally get them mixed up. There's Hugh Grant.
let's look him up. Yeah, is he the one you're talking about?
No, I said the wrong one, and you're going to be mad at me.
Okay.
It's
anyway,
the guy that's what's his? Oh, bloody hell!
it's
Can you
okay.
search Kingsman? Because oh, there he is. He's on the tab of suggested people. It's Colin Firth.
Okay, sorry.
No, it was Colin Firth. People tell me all the time, Jamie, stop saying the wrong names.
Yes, Jamie, you should stop saying. Oh yeah, Colin Firth.
He's the guy that's in Kingsman, Colin Firth, and he's what you'd consider gentlemanly.
Yeah, look, I mean, the whole attire of people who are in Kingsman movie, they're very gentleman type. And then we have Rowan Atkinson. Who doesn't know Mr. Bean?
Yeah, he's.
I don't think there is anyone in the
Have you
world
seen
who doesn't know
Johnny
Mr. Bean.
English?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it sounds like a spin-off of
It's
James
like
Bond. Yes, but in a very funny and British humor
You know
way,
what?
which I like.
My girlfriend absolutely loves Johnny English. Like, she was upset one time, and I was like, right, we're going to watch Johnny English. She was like cracking up at the end of it.
So you know her
I
weakness.
like the scene where he's stuck inside that knight's armor. Have you seen that?
Oh yes.
And
yes.
then at the end he tries to tell everyone he's got the solution, and he falls down the steps, and his body goes, and he just slides out of the room. Yeah, that's
Oh
great.
my
I love
God.
that scene.
Oh,
That's
Rowan
great.
Atkinson, the
Yeah.
best actor in the world,
Yeah.
the best guy in the world. But yeah, I like how religiously, basically, invested they are into one specific.
Yeah.
Like it's a certain British cultural aspect.
Yeah.
Maybe may that be wearing a suit.
Yeah.
Maybe may that be being a very gentleman, or may that be being a very, a very very common man, but and have a very high sense of humor.
Right.
While talking about religion,
Yeah.
there is one main topic that we wanted to talk about:
Yeah.
the Church of England.
Yeah.
I had before I came to UK. Sorry, it must be my ignorance and all that. I had not heard of Church of England. I thought England was Christian in a way.
Yeah.
I knew the predominant
Historically Christian.
yes, and I thought people would be like either Catholic or Protestant, and they would be some of them would be looking up to the Pope
Right.
in the Vatican, and
Yeah.
some of them would be looking up to for something else. I didn't know what Protestant people follow. I didn't really know.
Oh, okay.
So Church of England. What's going on?
So basically, Church of England, established by King Henry VIII. He wanted to divorce his wife. He couldn't get a divorce, so he went to the Pope and he decided, I'm going to make my own church. And that was basically the start of his Protestant church. Protestantism started in Germany, but it spread across all of Northern Europe. It's also the reason there's been lots of wars, specifically civil war. In 1660s, we had a big war between the royalists and the parliamentarians, and a lot of that had to do with religion. I think it's better nowadays, but I would say something like the Catholics are more prevalent, and that's simply because I think the Protestants have slowly diluted into the rest of society. So you might say you're not religious and you're from this country, but you're probably somewhat culturally Protestant because your ancestors would have been. And I think that's the case, really.
Yes. I mean, I didn't know this. Like, if you want to go to certain schools in UK, state schools, and which are run by Church of England, that you need to go to church like every Sunday or something like that.
Right.
You need to participate in those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it sounds so. See, we see UK, America as all these progressive countries, where you would not be subjected to like one religious.
Right.
Activity that you had to do in order to send your children to a school.
Yeah.
But when I heard that, it sounded very backward. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's my.
Well, I'll tell you something. When I was at school, like primary school, 15 years ago, we sung hymns in our assembly. Also, we would quote stuff from the Bible. We'd have a priest come in, talk about the Bible, and we learned the holiday stories. We learned the Easter story and the Christmas story. That was when I was a kid, but I know that times have changed, and that's not actually what they now teach at school. That's how it is, really.
Do you think that helped preserve a kind of Christian culture in the UK?
Well, the thing is, I think it's nice that the children understand what their history of the country is, to understand where they are now. But what I would say is that this is something that many people don't agree with me on, but I think that this country is quite unconsciously Christian. Our rules of law were made in the image of the 10 Commandments of the Bible, and that's what the Constitution basically is. It's merged into Christian values. That's what it is. So there are ways that we are Christian. Obviously, today is Good Friday. It's a bank holiday, so lots of people aren't working, and that's happened for all of European history, really, going back to the Romans.
But we're at this point today that more than half of the British population says they are not religious anymore.
Right.
And only 35% of the population belongs to Christian denomination, and out of that, only 20% say they are. Right. They identify with Church of England now. And does that surprise you at all, or do you think young people are not that religious and they are going away and away from religion, and there might come a point where Church of England will be basically, there will be no reason for it to exist or something like that?
Well, I think there's always been a bit of a grey area between Christians and atheists. It's actually been only in the last 10 years that you've been able to put yourself down as atheist in studies where they ask what religion you are. Before that point, you were automatically put down as Protestant. So, when I was a kid, or maybe a couple of years before, 70% of this country was considered Christian. And that was because you were automatically put into Protestant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did not have choice to choose atheist?
Well, they just I guess that's how it always was, really, is that the population the population at large, the common people, they were put into the box of Protestant. Yeah.
I think everyone is now more obsessed with bake-off shows and the Love Island, and they're forgetting about the religion and all that. Yeah. I don't know, religion is very personal matter. It's up to a person to decide what religion they want to be in, what kind of ideology they want to follow, what kind of religious ideas they want to have, what kind of religious morals they want to live by. At the end of the day, without agreeing with Richard Dawkins and all those people who say some religion teach more horrible things than the other ones, what I believe is all the core message of all the religion is same. It does. They all talk about unity, basically, being in good faith with all your neighbors, and doing good deeds to other people, helping the poor, and all those kind of things, But then, it's a personal matter what religion you believe in, and I would leave this idea to people out there, what kind of religion they want to believe in, or they don't want to believe in.
It's not your preference,
you know.
It's
but one thing you need to do is you need to do independent investigation of the truth. Either it is about the religion or is it about anything else. If there is anything that I have learned from Baha'i religion, it's that independent investigation of truth. It's like it doesn't necessarily have to be about religion, but about everything that you want to believe in. Please go out there, do some research,
Find out.
think about it, and find out.
Yeah.
And I know it's getting more harder and harder to find out the truth with in the web of all the hatred, all the negativity, and all the one-sided stories.
Right.
But then eventually we'll get there. Saying that, do you think there is anything that you can add to the second part of the podcast about British?
That's a beautiful place to end it, really. And yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Well, we're going to a part where we talk about a 0-hour thought.
Oh, okay.
So, what came to your mind as a 0-hour thought this week?
Well,
Or do you want me to go first?
I'll do mine if that's okay.
Yes, so do your point, please.
Okay.
I want to hear it.
I don't know if this makes much sense to everybody else, but basically, me and Ujjwol, we like to just write down whatever we're thinking or feeling, and this is something that came from my brain this week, so I'm going to share it with you. Just hold on just a second. I have it. Man.
I know you have it. I've read it. It's very nice.
Thank you.
A bit hard to understand, but very, very nice.
Yeah, normally it's hard to understand. Yeah.
No, it's because you're such a good writer, you know, someone who is kind of illiterate like me in terms of literature.
Right.
It's hard to understand.
So, here it is. I'll do it in a narrating voice. Unregulated order is true power. This means having rules without succumbing to the pressure of order. This is defined by the benevolent king who reaches his arm out to a man on trial and says, "I forgive you."
Wow. What does that mean? Sorry.
Okay, we can unpack it. Basically, people think that they need to obey by rules all the time to establish a sense of order. And actually, the people who are respected highly are the ones that are unconventional. So everyone thinks they need to be playing by the rules 100% of the time. But sometimes it's the king who makes the craziest decisions, and people take a step back and they realise, wow, like, that's actually true, you know. How do we not realise that?
Yeah, almost all of the world leaders,
Yeah.
not the world leaders, almost all of the world, the most successful businessmen, the entrepreneurs, the philanthropist people, and also one of the most loved leaders around the world.
Like,
They-
I would like to say...
they are like what you have just
I'd like
described
to say
in
a
that beautiful
shout
writing.
out to, what's his name, Prince Kaishek, the Prince of Dubai, of the UAE.
Don't know.
Yeah, there's a
his
there's a
name.
BBC interview of him from about 10 years ago, and I it's quite inspirational for me, actually.
That's a very long name. Oh
Yeah.
no, yeah.
He's got like yeah, I think there's a BBC interview. I recommend everyone goes watch that BBC interview, because basically he's interviewed by British media and they're saying, why don't you comment on such and such? And he goes, well, it's not in our nature. This is it.
Oh, Sheikh Mohammed.
Sheikh Mohammed.
Yes.
Yeah, he is the, in my opinion, the definition of a benevolent king. Like, he's like the lion, you know. He's the main lion, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people would agree with it, but
well, at least from
I'm
this
happy
BBC
you got that.
from this BBC
yes.
interview, anyway.
Yeah, I'm happy that you got that as an
Yeah.
outcome of it, and
Okay.
maybe he is.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
All right, my
Let's hear
0-hour
it.
thought, which came literally at 0 hour last night, at around 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. The topic is the headline. The title. Sorry, I'm very rough.
Take your time, it's fine.
The hypocrisy. Imagine living a life where every moment is worth living. Life which is worth cherishing, not for the potential of being said, but for the sheer amount of joy it brings. Imagine reaching the top of a breathtaking mountain, crisp air filling your lungs, the heavenly scenery before you. There is nothing like it. In that moment, the only validation you seek is the sense of self-achievement and the wonder within yourself, untainted by the need to broadcast it to the world. The false sense of validation and the fragile pride in your ego only drowns you into oblivion. That's not the life you should want to live. The life that is worth living is the life lived through your eyes, not through a screen in front of it.
Wow.
The hypocrisy.
This guy, he is a living guru. I kid you not. He's very poetic and articulate, and he understands something very peaceful about nature that I think we can all learn from.
I hope one day my mum will agree with you.
Please, Ujjwol's mum, agree with me.
Yeah.
You know.
To establish a bit more on it, the reason I gave it a title, The Hypocrisy, is I'm doing the same thing. I'm sharing it, the most cherished moment of my life that I lived, to the world. And I'm talking about we should not be doing that. We should be living in the moment. I mean, but I'm literally writing it down and sharing it with the world. And that's the hypocrisy out of it.
Well,
maybe, yeah, I'm not different.
Well, we're sharing. That's it. We've given ourselves a platform. You can do it too. You know.
Yeah.
Well, this is all about everyone.
So thank you, everybody. If you have been with us until this point, thank you for joining in our podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And your support is very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please stick with us for the next one.
Thank you.
Thank
See you in
you.
the next one.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.